Don't lose hope. There is a way, and you are not your diagnosis. You are not your diagnosis. That would be the biggest thing that I would say to someone, heart to heart, eyes to eyes, if I'm close enough to them, hands on shoulders. And that is what I would say. It means that delayed fertility, and they call it infertility early in the piece, which really infertility is like the absolute that you cannot get pregnant and you will not get pregnant. This is what I say to my clients. Let's call it delayed fertility. Let's call it you are on a fertility journey. And let's say that we are fine-tuning biological markers, because it is a human biological process. And so if you go down IVF, that's exactly what they're doing. They are manipulating a whole, and I say that in a nice way, but they are manipulating a number of factors to change the environment to be able to make that pregnancy happen. Yes? And so that is happening externally of the body. So yes, there's a lot of injections that need to take place and protocols. And if that doesn't work, they will see what didn't work, and then there's something else that they will do, and something else, and then something else. So that is the journey through, say, IVF, IUI procedure.
Welcome, everyone, to the podcast. I have a guest joining me from the other side of the world from where I am. I'm closing my day off. My guest is starting their day. And Helen Zee is with me today. We're going to be talking about some amazing stuff to help families and couples and on a journey to grow their family. And Helen's here to help with some amazing things, resources, and guidance and support to help you on your journey. Helen, welcome to the podcast. Nice to have you here.
Oh, Dave, thank you. It's great to be chatting with you. I'm excited to be having a open conversation and seeing how it all rolls. And thank you for welcoming me.
It's great. Very nice to have you here. I am on the website, helenzee.com. We'll have links in the show notes. You can go there. Helen, can you let everybody know where you are in this big, great world of ours?
I am down south in Melbourne, Victoria, and I live in the hills, so I'm actually surrounded by forest. And I just say that I'm in an adult tree house and enjoying life and being close to nature, because it's a very big part of my life.
And we had our little pre-interview chat a while back. I think I remember you taking me outside and giving me a little tour of what's outside your door there. And as a Canadian listening and speaking with you, I was living vicariously through you as you took me for a little tour. Thank you for doing that, by the way. That meant a lot to have a little taste of your part of the world. So that was really fun for me. It's great to have you here.
Great.
Let's talk a little bit about your background. Again, helenzee.com is the website. For those that are coming to your website, who is this for? Who do you help? I would love to kind of set that as the beginning stage of our conversation today.
Yeah, great. I help women, men, and couples on the path to parenthood. So wishing to have a baby, whether it is in the near future or whether they are going through the fertility journey at the moment. And more recently, helping women also preserve their eggs for later on. So that has been something very new technology-wise that has been available for women for egg freezing later on in life. And I'm also a relationship and an intimacy coach. So put the fertility on the side. I also help people with their relationship and intimacy.
Beautiful. Tell me, go back to the beginning for us then. Where did all this start for you to start this journey?
Yeah. Life folds and melds together. So I used to, for many, many years, was a pharmaceutical manager, started off making the flu vaccine and working with anti-cancer drugs and managing a couple of departments. And my ethos is holistic health. So it all marries together. I then went on to become a fitness trainer, yoga teacher. This is all as I'm going through in my career. I also opened up a fitness studio in the local area where I was working down in Clayton, and I was asked by Monash IVF, which is one of the leading IVF clinics and hospitals in the world. And I say that because the first baby 50 odd years ago came out of that technology. Anyway, I was asked if I could run a pilot program, which was a lifestyle program. And the lifestyle program meant that I was kicking off my stilettos at 5 o'clock and had a car boot of equipment, and I would literally turn a boardroom into a fitness station. And the women that were on IVF would come and I would do fitness training for them. And so we got a lot of stats out of that. And we were also able to see the results real life, because women that were on IVF for a number of years were getting pregnant. Egg quality was increased, embryo viability, which means that when the egg and the sperm do come together and sit in the petri dish for a period of time and get defrosted, the viability was higher. So the implantation and the success rate was higher for women and couples. And it was beautiful to actually see that as a live experiment. I'll say this in inverted commas, but this is what research is, my friend. We're actually bringing evidence upon evidence to actually show that the trend is that when people do follow the markers that help with fertility, we are seeing better results. And so that's how my journey predominantly started. And I'll add a tiny little bit to that. There was one thing that I felt was missing, because I was also doing some meditation, etc., for clients as well. And partway through the program, I said to the staff, and I said to the main person who was sponsoring the program, can we bring the males in? And back then, 15 years ago, the rules of engagement around IVF are not the same, and is not as fluid as what it is today, Dave. Back then, it was heteronormative, which basically means it was only reserved for people that were in a relationship predominantly, and in a male-female relationship, unless a woman was deemed to be terminally ill or have some kind of illness where she was allowed to have her eggs preserved before going through treatment. That was pretty much the only two ways. Whereas now there is a lot of gender fluidity. There's women who are on IVF on a journey for themselves. You can egg freeze for future preservation of having a child. There's also same-sex relationships that can access the program as well, predominantly in a lot of countries around the world. So I thought I'd add that frame piece here now. When I started getting the males coming in, that was also quite incredible, because I got to see a spectrum of relating and relationships were taking place. And because you can see it, it's an up close and personal journey, going through a medical procedure and such vulnerability, you get to see the spectrum of human emotions. And what I found is there were certain couples where, say I was doing some, boxing, so they were next to one another and, they were boxing into pads. And as they were boxing, there was like this energy that was coming through and going like through the eyes, like, look at what we're doing, look at what we're doing. And there were other couples, my friend, where there was just vacancy. There was just such that the journey was crushing them. And it was like, and I know listeners can't actually see this, but it's basically really the energy is low to the ground. The eyes were soft, and I also got to see, because they were telling me about their relationships, but I also got to see fundamentally how sex was being used as a weapon, or not having sex or intimacy at all because they were now only relying on IVF. So their intimacy no longer was a priority.
Right.
And that broke my heart. It really, really broke my heart because it didn't start off like that. And so a short while after, that's when I decided to go and learn about relationship and intimacy coaching and be more qualified to be able to offer that for my my clients. Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that initial consultation, maybe with a doctor, where the doctor comes back to a couple and says, it's going to be a tough road for the two of you, or to have a family, and having your hopes dashed mentally. That's a huge mountain to climb when you're told that for whatever medical reason you can't have a family, and having that whole designation of being infertile. That's a scary thing to hear for a couple, or for someone that's looking to have a family. How do we get past the mental side of just struggling with that thing is hanging over us? It's telling us that it might not be likely that we're going to have a family.
It is a grief process. So there is a grieving process, but in the grieving process, because it's also not absolute, the human spirit will also say there is a way, and it becomes like a fight. And so you would actually hear in the fertility space that we're in, others refer to themselves as fertility warrior, because they feel like they are in there having a fight. There is a scoring system called Fertiqual, which is fertility quality of life. And it's an index that has been created by university, I don't remember the name of it. And it actually shows that the infertility journey is as stressful to the body as someone finding out they're terminally ill.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So to answer to your question, Dave, you've picked a brilliant question to talk about, and also let our viewers know that if that is you, and if that is members of your family, because now fertility, or in the delayed fertility, sits at 1 in 6 couples for a lot of Western countries, and worldwide through the World Health Organization, infertility has been demonstrated to be 15% of the global population. Now, that is tremendous in my eyes. Now, I'm a scientist, as I said, and I've worked with World Health Organization. Trying to get drugs to humanitarian aids around the world when I was in my job that I was doing. So I know how to look to the regulatory bodies, and also with the World Health Organization. And so, yes, the latest statistics are 15% of the world population. Now, that includes even those countries where naively we go, oh, but they go and have so many children. And we've got statistics on worldwide. So it's absolutely phenomenal at how the reproductive rate is definitely on the decline.
So for those that are listening to this episode, they've come because of the title, because of you as a guest, and they're eager to hear some information from your perspective. And I really appreciate you being here. Those that are listening and they've had that diagnosis, or they've had that information come back to them, that it might not be in the cards for them to have a family. In the early stages of hearing that, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts directed to them specifically, and how they can move past that information towards the potential that this could really be something that could happen for you. What would you say to them?
Beautiful. Yeah. Don't lose hope. There is a way, and you are not your diagnosis.
Thank you.
You are not your diagnosis. That would be the biggest thing that I would say to someone, heart to heart, eyes to eyes, if I'm close enough to them, hands on shoulders. And that is what I would say. It means that delayed fertility, and they call it infertility early in the piece, which really infertility is like the absolute that you cannot get pregnant and you will not get pregnant. This is what I say to my clients. Let's call it delayed fertility.
Nice.
Let's call it you are on a fertility journey. And let's say that we are fine-tuning biological markers, because it is a human biological process. And so if you go down IVF, it's exactly what they're doing. They are manipulating a whole, and I say that in a nice way, but they are manipulating a number of factors to change the environment to be able to make that pregnancy happen. Yes?
Nice.
And so that is happening externally of the body. So yes, there's a lot of injections that need to take place and protocols. And if that doesn't work, they will see what didn't work, and then there's something else that they will do, and something else, and then something else. So that is the journey through, say, IVF, IUI procedure. Irrespective of whether you are going through IVF, IUI, even surrogacy or a donor implant, so donor eggs to actually get donor eggs implanted into a female body, I say synergistically and holistically look at lifestyle factors, because every medical diagnosis, Dave, says exercise, diet, sleeping well, stress less, like you get it everywhere. And fertility is no different. And so if we're looking at a sleep-wake cycle to try and manage and balance hormones, if we're looking at food, a condition called PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome, can be well managed and also reversed if we take into consideration exercise and diet. So the diagnosis is not the be all and end all. We change the factors. Like every time we eat, we can make a difference to what is happening biologically in our body. And we do, we're just not aware of it. So we use food, we use healthy sleep hygiene, we use stress reduction techniques, we use clean living and exposing the body less to endocrine hormonal disruptors, because there are so many chemicals in our world. I can talk about those stats if you want me to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love how you say that it's not infertility at the early stage, but delayed fertility. That's just a whole mindset shift just in saying that. And I think that's the other thing, is once you feel like there is no hope, then you start to act like there is no hope. And in that stage, it's very hard to see that dream come true of having a family. So that mindset shift of even just how you frame it, how you talk about it, gives that element of hope, and that there is a chance that as we do these things properly and take away some of the things that aren't working and focus on what is, that increases our opportunity to have a family. So I love how you frame them.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that, Dave, the women and the couples that do get pregnant after many cycles, the one thing that they say to everybody else is don't lose hope. Miracles happen, because these women and these families are walking miracles. Really, where they've been on 15 cycles and multiple miscarriages and all these other things that can take place. Because what happens is, month in and month out, your biological body is on the forefront. It's like what you're hearing from the doctors is what is wrong. That is hard to take into the psyche time and time again. Yeah. And to go, well, this didn't work. This was wrong. We've got to do this. And this is what plays out in a woman's psyche. And then the more that we invest money in that, it just gets exacerbated. It's like, well, how much more is it going to take? How much more of me is it going to take? And so ideally we want to try and then get, instead of the energy being pushed outwards like it's an appeal, we want to try and then have the receptivity come back in. So, and it is a process. Yeah.
Let's talk for a moment to the partners, the spouses in
Mm-hmm.
this. It can be a very personal journey as a mother to be on that path. But for the partners and spouses, what kind of support, practical support things can we put in place to be that support in this whole journey?
Yeah.
What kind of things can we do? What's your advice?
Yeah. The advice, first and foremost, is getting always reminding the woman going through the fertility treatment that her partner is also affected by this as well. So it's not a separation in the journey.
Yeah.
That is number one. It's like your partner is also affected. No partner wants to see their beloved being injected constantly, like hormonally being affected, etc. I have a process whereby partners have date nights. And in that date night, it's not just all the fun stuff. It's not like, oh, let's all dress up and go to the theater or go to the movies. But we have a heart-to-heart, eye-to-eye, brain-to-brain check-in. And in that, there is like, well, what are you afraid of? And so I have an uninterrupted talk time that I teach people, which is you set your timer for 2 minutes. You can start off with 2 minutes because it can be quite difficult. And it is active listening. So no, but this and that's not right, but it's active listening of what are you afraid of? And then slowly, we just start to come down and into the vulnerability starts to come into that shared space. And so then when the partner has a turn, they will start saying the same thing. So they will talk about what they're afraid of. And then there is something new that comes through, and there is a sense of unity that can take place. That is my number one go-to, because I have just seen the magic and the beauty that happens from this one question that seems simple but is quite deep. Because a partner might turn around and so a spouse might say to the partner who's going through the fertility treatment, it hurts me inside to see you in pain. And I'm afraid that you are always going to be in pain and I don't know how to help you. So when a person can say that and it lands, then when you're in the kitchen a few days later and you're rubbing up against each other, these things come to the forefront. The psyche will start to soothe that and there is a difference in the way that we can relate as we go through that. So that would be my number one thing. The number two thing is that it takes a village to raise a child and it takes a village to create a child. And so your spouse may not be the be-all and end-all that has to be there 100% of the time for everything. So have a support network around you. And so the partner can also go out and debrief with other people as well. Get that perspective and bring that back home into the relationship. And the same thing with the female partner, the partner going through the fertility treatment. Huddle, kiss, and if you are going through IVF, so I say cuddle and kiss because oxytocin and kisspeptin are two beautiful hormones that help soothe out the rough edges of the spikes of estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, follicle stimulating hormone. And for the listeners who are going through the journey, I know you know what I'm talking about when we talk about our sex hormones. But kissing, this is for everybody, not just for fertility, it's biological. Kissing activates kisspeptin. And kisspeptin is a feel-good hormone that actually helps the body relax, it helps the body expand, it helps the body have the feel-good. And so this is what happens. This is why foreplay and kissing makes you feel good, and gets you in that first state of arousal before we go into more of the cordial and the sexual penetration parts of our practice. And also the cuddling and the skin contact is oxytocin. So that is also important in having those rushes of feel-good chemicals and hormones running through the body, which helps the process. So I say to my clients, whether they're on IVF journey or not, that increase that level of kissing and cuddling. It doesn't even need to go any further into deeper intimacy. So it doesn't need to be the weapon that people can use and say, call the partner at work and say, I've just had my second temperature increase. Come home. You're not going out with the boys, or you're not going to catch up with your family. You got to come straight home. We've got to have sex tonight. That's the kind of stuff that can take place in the intimacy journey. And that's the stuff, Dave, where people can feel like they've vacated their bodies the longer this journey continues. And so let's get kissing, dating, cuddling in there. And let's also know that the fertility window of optimizing the sexual intimacy to be able to actually help the process go through, even if you are going through IVF. So it doesn't need to be an external process from yourself. When the partner understands those elements as well, so when partner being he or she, however pronouns people like to use these days for themselves, when they're also understanding the biology, when they're also understanding what takes place in an IVF, IUI, or the natural fertility journey, that is what is helpful to the partner that is going through the fertility treatment. So that is another suggestion that I would have for the listeners, is get educated on the brevity. You don't have to know absolutely everything, but get educated on knowing what takes place biologically and what you two can do as a partnership to aid that transition.
I love that that both people are involved in this, and it's not just one person who is having treatments and seeing the doctor and working through all this, and the other person is more of a spectator, but together we're doing this together. And I think that's a great picture to keep in mind as well too, that we are in this together and supporting each other at the same time. It's a great visual as well.
It does help.
So, okay, now how do you take all of this information and all of this great guidance and assistance that you have for families and put that into a book? I have no idea. The book would be 2 billion pages long with all the information that you could share. How do you format this into a book that's shareable for people?
Yeah. It was a brilliant process. How do you share it into a book? I put a lot in there, and then I needed a really good editor to just say, hey, Helen, cut this out. This could be a second book. And that was my okay point. That was my okay point, is like cutting things out, knowing that there could be a second book somewhere in the future. But what I did in the book is I followed a linear fashion, and that is the first third of the book, Dave, I speak of the physical, the mental, the spiritual, and the emotional preparation of getting yourself ready for becoming a parent. And there is a saying, it's called matri-sense. Matri, like matri, mater, mother, sense. And that is the preparation of the physical, the emotional, but also even the surroundings. There is a proprioception that takes place when a woman is wanting to get pregnant, even before she gets pregnant, she starts to look at her environment differently. And it's like there is a preparation. I remember for myself, Dave, I started to all of a sudden go, oh, there's a maternal health centre there. And, oh, there's this primary school. Oh, and there's this art centre. And it felt like my body was preparing for then biologically going, oh, actually, I'm wanting to have a baby. So I speak of matrescence as being that physical, mental, emotional, spiritual preparation for your body, and calling in your miracle child, the spirit that we all are. Second to that, in the second part of the book is I've called it sacred sex for conception, and that's where I take the intimacy in the relationship, and I've got some beautiful grey lead diagrams where I actually speak of the polarity of a male's body, the female's body, and how we can actually increase the magnetism of our body, as well as taking that into our lovemaking to be able to enhance the experience, to be able to then bring in and draw in this third energy that wants to come through your bodies. So I've got that as being the intimacy, the relationship where we can lean in. And one of those practices, which I shared with you earlier about asking for what you want, is also a practice in the book. And the last section of the book, I needed to speak to preparing yourself for conscious parenting, because ideally what I do and what I stand for is that the people that come to me are consciously aware that they are wanting to go on a program or a journey to consciously be aware in conception, biology, what to eat, when to exercise, when to help your hormones, so not go against your hormones, but go with your hormones. Right. So the back part of that book is there are some people who are worried about becoming parents, even though they want to, but they do not want to recreate a childhood experience that they had of their own parenting. And this is why, as a human species, we're always evolving, because we're always wanting to do and be what our parents weren't, for a lot of us. Right. For a lot of us. And so I just speak of in those situations where people are worried of past experiences, grievances that they've had in their childhood or other relationships or even other marriages or other experiences with other babies that have left them carrying some post-traumatic stress, the kind of steps that they can take to help themselves to be able to change the trajectory of the vision of what they have for the future of their family.
So I know there's specific answers to post-traumatic stress and how that can derail you on your journey of having a family. But is there anything in more general terms that we can share with someone on how to address maybe a traumatic event that is blocking the potential for having a family?
Yeah. I would be seeking out a counsellor that would and shop around, ask around, have your questions, even if they're offering a few sessions, go into a session if it doesn't feel right, step out of it. So really having some intuitive space there. I would be seeking a counsellor that's not just a talk therapist. I would be seeking someone that has got somatic experience, which means that they're able to notice and facilitate that there is a trauma response and an emotional response that is trapped in the body, and be able to actually help the client frame that and also help release it, because once we're able to release that, there is more space in the body, because we carry our emotions in the tissues, in the empty space in our body, because our body is not just all solid and blood. It's actually got a lot of empty space in there as well. And so we can carry emotional grievances in the body and in the tissues. And so having a somatic therapist or a psychotherapist that is well versed in grievances would be my go-to.
So I know a couple that is going to be listening to this episode with great anticipation, and then getting the book for sure. The one thing that they struggle with, and I've had side conversations with them in the past, is the battle with the outside pressure from family and friends. Hey, you two, you've been together for X number of years. How come there's no kids? When am I going to be a grandparent? Come on, let's go, guys. And they don't know the secret battle happening behind closed doors. And that doesn't help in the process because they feel the pressure from external sources that they are late to the game, or they're not meeting expectations, or everyone else in my friend group is on the journey of being parents and we're struggling silently on our own. How do we address the comments and the information coming to us, the expectations, in a way that doesn't derail us as a couple on this journey? How do we respond to the people outside who are unaware of our struggle? How do we do
that? I find what can help is to have a little session with your partner where it becomes playful and just turn it into a bit of a, like, let's have some wild comment sections come back, something that's going to make you laugh, instead of saying, your mother is blah and she's blah, and keep bleeping every second word. But what if we can create them as characters and just have something funny to come back to for ourselves? So you may not even need to say it to the mother-in-law or to the sister or what have you. But what if then, even when you're together at a family function and that starts coming through, even that's that little eye gaze and that giggle between the partnerships, kind of like we've got each other's back, because you're taking that back to something funny that you said
right
at home in the privacy of your own home and your relationship. And it may just be that, this is might say something as this, if they did know that you were trying,
right,
you can respectfully say, hey, you will be the third to know.
The third to know. I love that.
Or
I've
the
never
fifth
heard that.
to know, or something like
Yeah.
that, because it's like, hey, you're asking me all the time, and if I don't know, like, yeah, hey, back off, like, you'll be the fifth to know. So you're kind of like putting them into place, right? It's like, well, I'll tell my husband, I'll tell my mum, or I'll tell my best friend, I'm going to tell my work colleague, and then I might tell you, So having something like that and making it a bit playful for yourself. And to be able to also, if you do want to tell your family, then you also say to them, you just don't ask. You don't ask, give me prayers, but none of this, when are you, what are you up to, what have you. So we've got to speak our truth. So if that is going to help, then you can sit them down and say, these are the rules of engagement around this subject. So, that can be the hey, this is sovereignty of our body. And I get it. We hear this all the time. But having your little go-tos, which are your playful ones, as well as your straight down the line. Yeah. But the first thing to do, Dave, is what I suggest is we just don't hold it back and then just snap out, because this person is unaware that they might be a brunt of an emotional outburst. And that's not fair for them either, because they would have had no idea of the pressure that you're under. Right. So give that person an opportunity to back off before you would, be really angry towards them, or, use some not so nice words.
Right. Because they might be the first time ever commenting to you, but the 10th comment you've heard that day from other people. Right. So they're unaware. Right. Yeah. And that ignorance, they think they're helping, They think it might be a joke or lighthearted, but those can really cut pretty deep if you're really struggling behind the scenes. So
yeah, when I work with um, my beautiful people, there is a lot of support around Mother's Day, around Father's Day, around Christmas, around Easter, around death of a parent who has not seen a grandchild. Like, it runs and cuts very, very deep. So the emotional heartache and barrage that people can take on excessively, it does not help. And so this is where I say it takes a village. And so I don't just work with what to eat and how to exercise, because there's certain exercises that can damage the fertility journey. I mean, that's the truth. And people, this is why we are fitness professionals, or where, I am qualified in these things. There's certain exercises in certain parts of the fertility journey where you could be getting pregnant, but if you're overly twisting with weights and doing a whole heap of high intensity interval training, that 3-day, 5-day implantation is not going to stick around. And so you won't even realize that you got pregnant. That's just going to come out in your next menstrual cycle, and you won't even realize that there was a pregnancy that didn't actualize. Yeah. So, so yes, we hold a lot of tender hearts and hands, but also give the information that is the empowering information for the person to feel supported and rise above what they are going through. A reminder to rise above, and that they are not their infertility.
What I love listening to you, Helen, is getting the overwhelming sense listening to you that it's science, but it's science and love combined from your perspective. That you're not just here to quote us some statistics and give us 5 top 10 things or 5 things we need to do today, but you're coming with that human side, and you understand your clients, you understand the people you work with, and you bring that human element and understanding to this. Tell me the joy that happens for you when success happens for one of your clients that comes through works with you. What does that mean to you?
I feel like I'm an auntie thousands of times over.
Nice.
That's basically the feeling that I get. I just feel like an auntie. I really do. And and where I can visit people, I visit people. I will go and visit them and their children and their growing families, and it just feels like a delight that I am able to live, and my vocation being it is my dharma, to be able to help people be empowered on their path to parenthood and have that as a rite of passage. Have this as a rite of passage.
So you could have chosen many different paths with your career and with your knowledge and expertise. Why is this the path for you?
Yeah, I'll take it back to when I was about 2 years old, where I could feel I was a second child, so I had a young older sister. I'm a female, and Mama being pregnant, and I was 2 years old. It was my first childhood memories, and I would be praying with her every night, down on our knees, literally, with an icon, got a Greek background, right on the top. And there would be a prayer that I would recite and say that, can my mother's baby, can she be a healthy baby, have a healthy baby, and it be a boy? My mum really wanted a boy. But I remember very young age feeling like, we don't even need to pray anymore. It is. I could feel it. I could sense it. I suppose growing up, I over-identified with being like a mama for this baby brother of mine. But what happened was, growing up, I would be able to see and sense pregnant women. And I would be delightful. Like, I would always, like, even as a young girl growing up, I would sit right next to the mum, or I would get close, and I would like it would be like I was a baby whisperer or a baby magnet to mamas,
Wow.
whether they didn't even know they were pregnant yet. So it was kind of like an earlier gift, and then that cut off for a while, because as kids do, their intuition cuts off for a while. And then you go in and you study, and I did science and I did this and I did that. But then, yes, that opportunity through Monash IVF giving me that phone call and saying, hey, we want to pilot this program, just then meant that everything that I did in my life and all my studies after that have been all and around just trying to help people on the fertility journey.
And to that end, through your website, helenzee.com, we talked about the fact that you have some resources for people on this journey. And there's upcoming programs that you're offering. Can you talk us through some of the great things we find on the website?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. If I run a program twice a year called the Fertility Mentoring Program. So it's just nice and simple. It's 16 weeks of side-by-side help, where it includes one-on-one with me. So you get a protocol of your body markers, my suggestions of what you can do to help improve your fertility markers. And we do one-on-ones 3 times in that 16 weeks. But we also have a group container. Nothing is pre-recorded. So I teach live to the conditions that we are journeying with. Nice. So it's, so I'll leave that there. This, I start on April the 25th, 2023, and the other one won't be probably until around September or so, 2023. So that's kind of like my 2 cycles. There's lots of goodness. So if you look at Fertility Mentoring Program on the website, it'll either say we're starting or you go on a wait list. Of course, I can do that for one-on-one clients. So you do not need to wait for a group program. Because I know that, hey, why would I want to wait 4 months? So I do work one-on-one as well. But another resource that I have just to get to know me, like me, ideally a little bit more and want to work with me, is I have a 6-day Fertile Ready course, and I give a lot of information. So over 6 days, I break down what I would call the 6 steps or the blueprints of what to look out for in your life. Take an inventory of your life and your habits, and which are all science proven based ways of helping with healthy hormones, helping with stress reduction, eating food, exercise. There's an intimacy section in there as well, and also a section on hope and faith. Nice. So everything that we touched on today is in that 6-day free course.
Before we go, Helen, is there anything that you would like to add to our conversation that we haven't really touched on that you feel would bring value to our listener that are on this journey? Any kind of words of wisdom or help that you can offer up?
Dave, I feel I'll just reiterate that those that are on the journey, irrespective of whether you're on natural or IVF or donor or going to freeze your eggs for another state of your fertility journey, is look at the holistic way of really take on the information that you might get on Google, or ideally clarify with a professional, including myself. Is be really serious about having that holistic aspect in whole body care for your fertility, not just when you're wanting to have a child, but also throughout our lives, because these are the blueprints and the fundamentals for longevity and health in our lives. So that would be that would be what I'd like to reiterate.
Beautiful. Again, like I said, there's a couple that I know of that's going to be super interested in our conversation today. And that's only one couple that I know of. There's many, but to be part of somebody's journey in such an intimate way for some of the most trying days for many couples, and for many women on this path, to have you in their corner, to give them your support and your love and care and concern, and your genuine knowledge of science to help. I think this is such a beautiful package that you offer to help people. And the book is there as well as a resource. The website is here as a resource. You're available. And I just love the fact that you are on this journey. Again, you could have chosen many other, I guess, more self-serving paths to take in your career, but the fact that you're focused on families and the joy of being an auntie multiple times over. I love your approach to what you're doing, and I really appreciate you being part of our podcast.
Dave, it's been an absolute delight to chat with you. You're brilliant at what you do and the questions that you ask and facilitate. So I've had an absolute joy being here with you today, and I hope your listeners can as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So the website again, everybody, there'll be a link in the show notes, but helenzee.com. And I would love for you to go there and give Helen support and thank her for being part of the podcast, but as well, check out all the amazing resources that are available to you. Helen, thank you for sharing with us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tim.
Jumping here at the very end, I want to thank you for coming. We have listeners around the world, and I got to tell you, as a podcaster, it is so great to hear back from the people who listen to the show. Now, you are still here. The podcast's over. Like, we're sweeping up and putting the chairs away. You're still here. So, hi. I would love to talk to you. No, I really, really would. I would love to hear your voice. I would love to hear from you through email. You can do all that at livingthenextchapter.com. I say it fast because I love it. Living the Next Chapter. It's the name of the podcast. .com. How's that for easy? Right? Right. So come on over there and let's have a conversation. You can set up time in my calendar. You can, air quote here, book. Book time in my calendar. Book next chapter. Let's have a conversation. Thanks for being here. See you on the next one. Cheers.